2022. We have a couple quick little items to take care of before we go into our work session. So first thing on our agenda is the Board of Selectmen to speak to a resolution regarding the state revolving loans and the ARPA grant monies that are coming to us. So I'll turn this over to Mr. Pinio if he wants to do an introduction on this.
Sure. This is just a housekeeping issue relative to grant funding coming forward and authorizing me as the town manager to sign those documents so we don't have to hold the board meeting and get it in front of the board. This will be part of the ARPA grants updates as we go forward. You will receive updates as to grant signings, et cetera, but it's just a formality so that I am able to sign the grants on behalf of the town of Wolfeboro.
Okay. Shall we read the resolution into the minutes here, or?
Please.
Okay. So I'll do that. This is a resolution for the authority to file the designation of authorized representative for SRT and ARPA loans and grants. Whereas the town of Wolfeboro Water and Sewer Utilities, after thorough consideration of the nature of its drinking water system needs, hereby determines that the construction of certain works, generally described as water treatment plant upgrades and appurtenances, is desirable and in the public interest, and to that end it is necessary to apply for assistance from the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And whereas the applicant has examined and duly considered the provisions of RSA 486:14, RSA 485-H, or RSA 485-F, and the New Hampshire Code of Administrative Rules noted above, which relate to loans from the state of New Hampshire, and deems it to be in the public interest to file a loan application and to authorize other actions in connection therewith. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Selectmen, the governing body of said applicant, as follows. 1, that the person holding position of town manager, currently held by James Pinio, is hereby designated as the authorized representative of the applicant for the purpose of filing an application for a loan in accordance with the New Hampshire Code of Administrative Rules noted above, furnishing such information, data, documents, disbursements pertaining to the applicant for a loan as may be required, and otherwise to act as the authorized representative of the application in connection with the loan application. 2, the applicant agrees to repay the loan as stipulated in the loan agreement. 3, that a certified copy of this resolution be included as part of the application to be submitted for the loan. 4, that persons holding the following position at the time of the loan execution are authorized to sign the loan agreement binding the applicant to the terms and conditions of the loan, which is James S. Pinio, town manager. And 5, that the applicant agrees to make provisions for assuming proper and efficient operation and maintenance of the facilities after completion of the construction thereof. Let it also be resolved that the Board of Selectmen further authorizes Mr. James Pinio, town manager, to execute any documents which may be necessary to effectuate ARPA grant agreements authorized at the 2022 town meeting and other future federal or state grants. This presented to the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen on April 13th, 2022.
So moved.
I have a motion to...
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this resolution. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Takes care of that one. Next item we have is an update on the fire station renovation.
Yeah, so I'm just going to give a quick overview of this for Chief Zotti. We wanted to get this out as quickly as we could so we could get it on the website. We held the Public Safety Committee Building Committee meeting the other day. We are working on scheduling a public hearing to have public input from the citizens. We're looking at June 9th in the Great Hall to hold that meeting to get input relative to the projects and what they're looking at. I'll quickly go through, I believe you have in your packet an outline of the conceptual plan and the conceptual budget. So I'll go through the conceptual plan first, quickly go over the budget, and that'll be the gist of this conversation. So the existing fire station, what we're looking at is this will become a standalone fire station. The existing building, administrative building, will be renovated. Portion of the apparatus bay will be converted to administrative functions, and then it'll remain having 4 apparatus bays for the equipment. They are also looking at, on the back of the property, a fire department support 1-story structure that would give them a place to locate their off-season equipment, so that doesn't interfere with their normal operations. Moving along to page 2. Page 2 just gives a quick outline of what the first floor will look like, with offices for the administrative staff, codes review, meeting areas, lunch areas, storage. It also shows what the apparatus bay part of it will be converted to, which includes the training room and some other locker-type areas for decontamination and whatnot. The second floor of the building basically outlines bunk rooms, more of the living quarters for the fire staff, and it also implements a secondary stairway toward the library of the building. This would be something that would be added on for the future growth of the apparatus bay. With those apparatus bay going away and becoming functional areas for the administrative function of the department, there's a plan in the future to put 2 apparatus bays facing Main Street, which will allow for some of their larger apparatus to have a straight shot toward Main Street, as opposed to always having that left-hand turn. This seems to work for the fire department, and again, this apparatus bay here, this could be a second phase going forward. So this is something that could happen after the original project, depending on pricing. So that lays out what the building will look like. And this is just a schematic of what it could look like going forward. Couple different views of it. You have that in your packet, and it will be going on the website. Additionally, for this portion of the work, we have a conceptual budget. That conceptual budget goes into a variety of, I'm just trying to get the mouse, go to meeting thing here out of the way, goes into a variety of elements of this for phase 1, which is site development, facility upgrades, renovations, replacement of the apparatus bay subfloor, and that fire department support building on the back of the property, with a contingency and soft costs included. For that entire project, it's an estimated price tag of $4.2 million, and that would meet the fire department needs. Again, this is just to give you a brief overview of where we're at. This will be put onto the website as of tomorrow, and specific questions will be able to be addressed to Chief Zotti at any point by anybody, and or that public input session that we have scheduled right now for June 9th. If you have any further questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them, but this is just a brief overview of where we're at.
I just had one quick one, Jim, on the conceptual budget here, phase 1. So if we decided to go with this additional 2 bays, the larger bays there, that's not in the 4.2, that'd be another phase added onto the project.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And we do not have pricing for that yet. The architect is working that up just so we have it. so that we can do a cost benefit, and we're hopeful that we will have that information for that June 9th public input session.
Thank you. Any other questions? Brian?
Do you have any reworked numbers on the police department?
No, so we are actually putting together all the options for the police department with a lot of that information coming out on the 9th. We're going to evaluate or provide an overview of every option we've reviewed. So right now, and I don't remember what the conceptual budget was for the North Main Street project, 6-point-something million. But we have not dove into that yet. We're going to hold off on signing any contracts for construction-grade bid documents until after the public input session.
Any more information from Brewster?
No.
Well, I think that's a real good plan, to have that planning, and that session to get public input.
I agree. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, thank you for the update on that, Jim.
You.
Let's see, next we're going to move into a work session. I don't believe we need a motion or anything to go into that, do we?
No, we
can
don't.
just go in, and I'm going to turn this over to Linda to continue on the lead on the work session for the Bike Trails Committee, so I'll hand it over to you, Linda.
Okay, come on up. Thank you, Brad. And just for the audience, Luke is going to step down again and join us from the audience. I sent you out the...
Going over to our side.
I sent you out the minutes of the March 16th meeting. The Board of Selectmen had approved it, but it gave you an understanding of what we had talked about, and I want to make sure we all are on the same page on what we've talked about. So the next thing, I have spent some time getting surveys and surveys of the spray field, and Dave Ford gave us, and this was sent out, wasn't it? You got one sent out with your packet, a map. Did you get a spray field map?
Oh, Linda, I can put it on the screen as needed.
Yeah, it doesn't look that good on
Well, it may not be. No, it doesn't.
the, much harder to read.
You have,
I can
it
put
may
it on
be
the
not,
screen.
I have about 10,000 different maps, so it may not have been exactly that one. So that is a map of where the existing spray fields are. And one of the things that I have done is I went around and I checked with Dave Ford to make sure what permission he had granted, and he said that he gave no permission. I did not hear anything more from Tavis. I didn't go to him, but he talked to us at the meeting, and he said he only dealt with it in terms of the Conservation Commission land, if I remember right. I talked to Christine Collins. She thought that there had been some maintenance being done, but no widening, and that at some point, Andrew Lester had come to her with this master plan and asked her whether she would send a letter of approval, and she said no, that was something that would have to go to the planning board. So I found that is, and then there seems to be some misunderstanding that the planning board had approved the master plan for bike trails. And so I went to Kathy Barnard, and the master plan bike trail was talked about at the September 7th planning board meeting, and Tavis had recommended developing a policy for the construction of bike trails without planning board approval. There was a discussion, the pros and cons regarding this issue. No action was taken. Then there was another conversation, October 19th. Again, there was another discussion. This one was about footpaths going through wetlands, and they asked for information from the Conservation Commission, who said they had no problem with the approval, and I'm assuming this was something on conservation land. I'm not quite sure. Again, there's no action taken. So when I went back through here, it seems to me that we had misunderstanding about who gave approval, what this master plan was that went to the planning board, and whether there was any approval. And I think from that, assumptions were made that leads us to where we are today. Unless you have some other information that I don't have on this. Does that make sense?
So the way I heard this,
It just, I don't mean to be a pain, but,
sorry.
yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
So the way I heard this was neither the town manager, the town planner, the Dave Ford, Tavis, no one gave permission for this to happen.
That's my understanding.
But yet, everything that occurred, and nobody raised a hand or a flag or anything
My understanding
for
is...
6 months?
Well, my understanding is Dave Ford made some comments when people were on there making trails when he was spraying. And I don't know, I just went through to try to get somebody to say, yes, I gave him permission.
That would be nice to know, because it was heard from Lester that he had permission.
Well,
And he had permission to build on town land anywhere he wanted. And there
Well,
was
I
all
get-
sorts of stuff said. So it's amazing
Okay.
that that was allowed to occur.
so I look at it and say, what happened when you went on and did trails on the conservation land? You had a contract. You had a contract that was signed. You had liability insurance. The project was well-defined, cost, et cetera. That happened on all conservation land, so you knew that there needed to be some kind of a contract.
When you say you, don't me.
I mean, those people who were building trails,
Yes.
my understanding,
That
Single
was
Alliance.
Bellaterre Design.
Okay.
Yes.
It would,
not
and you're telling
Wolfeboro.
me it had nothing to do with single track?
I'm saying that the Wolfeboro Single Track Alliance, Bellaterre Design said they had permission to build trails. And then the money from the donor was going through Wolfeboro Single Track Alliance.
you were-
He had the contracts, he get all the permission. Wolfeboro Single Tracks Alliance had nothing to do with gaining permissions or anything.
Show you any of those contracts, or did he give you any documentation? Did you question him as who gave you approvals or anything?
According to him, he was in this building a lot. So
Well, I
It's
guess
kinda
then,
it's
I
very-
guess- and then we're talking to the wrong group. Because what you're saying is that you had nothing to do with it. It
Well,
was
not that we
done
didn't have-
by Bellaterre, and the person we should be talking to and doing something with is Bellaterre, and these trails aren't yours, you're not going to do anything more, that you're not going to use them.
I think if we kind of back up a little bit, I think all of this is helpful. All of the additional detail on this is great, because I think what we were trying to do from the point where this whole conversation started is figure out what's the right way to move forward. Because we had a lot of challenges in understanding exactly who said what, and where is the contract, and do you have something in writing? There were lots of questions raised in board meetings about, well, do you have that in writing? Because everything I do at my work is signing a contract with somebody, so I was very adamant about, do you have this? Well, no, we're all set. We haven't, there's another meeting and we're good, but we got the approval. So there's a lot of I think, again, if we kind of go back to what we've said before a few times, it's the pace is what caused the issue. All of a sudden, at the end of last year, there was a perception of approval for the Abenaki Trails, and I guess I'll focus it on that, the Abenaki Trails.
That's the one
Right,
we're
yeah.
concerned about, yes.
There was the
And
approval.
the spray field.
Right,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, what- we'll
That
call
area.
That
right,
area,
yeah.
okay, good.
And there was ambition to start building trails. There was funding to start building trails. And there was communication from a person that we had, I think, like we explained, had the intention of, and we were very excited about this opportunity to work with a gentleman that knew about trail building, was excited to do trail building, wanted to help us expand this in the town, seemed to have a lot of good momentum and at the time seemed to have good relationships with people and had a lot of positive things moving. So there's, I think with every person in every business, there's certain aspects about working with people that you appreciate and certain aspects that you don't. And I think that the kind of the momentum and the ability and the perception that we were going to be able to get trails built as a board was very exciting. And at that time, the person that was, you know, doing, kind of coordinating, and that we had in our board meetings and that we had paid to do this master plan, you know, Andrew Lester, he had, like, I don't know, he had positioned things in such a way that we're good, we have the ability to do this, and whenever we would ask for, you know, documents or actual approvals, well, I don't have that yet, but no, don't worry about it, we're good. And that's like when I started, you know, personally raising my hand and talking to people, and we as a board were communicating, saying, what are we doing? You know, but there was that momentum, and I've already got trail crews coming in to build the trails, and the town says it's good, and it just happened within like a month and a half of the end of summer, right before the winter. So the ability to, I mean, and then we were talking even at the end of that before the winter started, and it was, I just think it happened so fast because there was the money, the people to build, and even now that I've talked to all the trail builders, you know, they were even, you know, had some similar issues of, hey, can you get up here, and this is what's going to happen, and then some miscommunication and a lot of things there. So I think the kind of the hub of this is kind of, is it a single individual, which I think, you know, unfortunately is why we're here. And again, you know, I think there's aspects that I appreciate with the work that's been done at Fernald, the fact that I can bring my kids there and ride, you know, that was done by that individual with his machinery and his know-how, and, you know, so there was a lot of positive that gave us trust, and then a really fast thing that happened with you know, 2 trails.
And I guess that's where I look, as I look to the process that happened with the Conservation Commission.
Right.
That's why I make the comment. You know, I have a copy of those contracts, you know, and that this just happened. And, you know, and I'm assuming you want these trails, you see them as single track trails.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Okay, so that's why we come to you,
Right.
you know, and he was part of it. So here we are as selectmen, no public hearing, no approval of spending money, nothing, and trying to figure out how we move. And to boot, it will start with Climb. Climb cannot go on. It is on a spray field. And would never have approved putting Climb on the spray field, and Dave Ford said, nope, that one can't go. So whatever you had designed for Climb, that can't take place. So I'm not sure exactly what we do with that now. I guess we close it off?
Right now, we are lowering our retention pond, and they're spraying a lot right now, and it could go on for quite a while.
We can't spray into May 1. We're not spraying yet. I thought they started already. No, they can't.
So May 1?
May 1.
And how long will they be spraying?
They have to, October 30th. That's when that has to stop. We have
That's kind of bike season.
Yep.
That's the DES regulations on that spray. So here we are, we have that. And what I did do is I asked Dave Ford to draw me what would work and what areas can't.
Yep.
And so we have to figure out what we're going to do with the Climb Trail.
So are we saying the whole Climb Trail is on spray field or just a portion of it?
He said what you had drawn here as Climb, he drew a circle around and said no. So that's his spray field.
And just for clarification, it says hold on this paper, so is this hold until spray fields would be decommissioned and then we have another conversation, or is this a definitive no for the rest of time?
I'm not saying for the rest of the time, but for the next 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
no. So, and I thought in here, you had spent about $60,000 on it. You still had another 60 to spend, which it was in your presentation. That's where I got it from. So that cannot happen. So I don't know exactly what we'll do to block that off, but we'll need to do something about that. The next one was, we had, I think it was...
No, not 60,000. They've spent on 20...
It says 24.3.
24,388.
Yep.
They have 6 to 10 But another issue
did I
is,
get this?
do we still should we still let the public use that? I don't think we can.
I'm at Flow Trail.
Because they're going to, I mean, kids could get sprayed on. They're not.
Well, yeah, but right now, Holy Shoot is in the middle of a spray field, and people walk up that all the time.
But but that doesn't give us permission to build trails, to bring a whole lot of people on here, and he's saying that. That's part of the issue.
Yeah.
And there were some of these things were cross-country ski trails, but cross-country skiers are not there when we spray.
Right.
Yep.
So this is the
Yeah,
other thing that got
Holy
kind
Shoot
of...
is a cross-country ski trail that people happen to walk in the summer. If I saw stuff spraying out of pipes on my head, I probably wouldn't walk there in the summer. I'd wait till winter and I'd use it for cross-country skiing.
I used, it was Flow, which was the one you had spent 59,000, and you still had 60,000, and that's the one that we feel that there's some environmental issues with. And I don't know whether that's because it hasn't been finished or exactly what. That one, it looked like just missed the spray field. It looked like it's just outside. Is that one of the
Kind of look along the edge there, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything along the edge there. So we're going to have to decide what we do with that. And we are also,
Sorry, what is this? Because this one says okay on that. Am I looking at
that means that circle coming, this is how I read it, this circle coming around like this, those trails are okay.
Yep.
All right, that's how I read it. Hold is this one on the climb, and then he wasn't sure about the space in between. Because I sent it to him, give me some kind of an idea.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. No,
And that's what
I
he just did it. A lot of us couldn't print it because he did it in a magic marker, and our printers wouldn't accept it. And so I took a picture of it. That's why I had it. So that's why I'm talking about climb. Then it looks like, I think Flow looks like it's outside.
Yeah, it comes it's right on his delineated line of yes and no. There's a little gap right there. It's very, very close, but it may be far enough away from the spray fields.
And so that one is one we're going to have to try to figure out what we do. But, if that, I don't know if you want to, what we're going to do with that. So then I went on, and then the next one is this. And based on how I read, New Climb is in the spray field. Upper Bog Hill Run is in the spray field. Part of Holy Shoot is. Some of Tomahawk Redo is. Grahamville looks okay to me. And Tyler Crossing looks like it may have issues at the bottom. The ones not on spray field, it seemed to me, was Hubbard, Grandview, most of it, Black Eye, Lower Bog Hill, old part of Tomahawk, and Yum Run.
What about those ones I lost?
Those are okay. Those ones are not on any of the spray fields from the way I looked at it.
Okay. No, and that looks like, and this is something that, if we were, the blue trails are all existing cross-country ski trails anyways, so those
are no problem because it's in the non-spray time.
So the orange dash lines, so the one that it looks like would be the Tomahawk Redo dips into that hatch section where it says Upper Bog Run. If that were to stay out of that section, then that wouldn't be an issue per this map, I'm guessing. Like if it went closer to where Tomahawk or the Black Eye marker is above where Grandview and that whole loop goes around. So I mean, that's something if, the town was good with it, and if we had the trail builder reflag that section to make sure it stayed out of the spray field, that would allow those two to be out of the way.
I've done some talking with Jim on this. And we haven't made any decisions.
Right.
If we did allow any other, we would need a contract, and we need the land defined, boundaries. I personally would like a map. We'd need some cost figure of the whole project. We'd need liability insurance. We'd need terms and waivers on that contract, and that's all that we were missing in all of this, and that's all that went. you made sure was in the Conservation Commission. So that's, to me, that's what protects the taxpayers of this community, having that. And that means if you go on as the single track, you should have liability insurance for your volunteers.
Yep. Yeah, no, and that's, I know that we carry insurance for liability in certain areas. I could look in to see exactly what it's covering. But I know a big part of it was even in the foundation of this, and I think I mentioned it in the earlier meeting. A lot of us, or I think any person wants to limit their own liability, right? So that was something that as a board, we all made sure that the board was covered, having that sort of.
I would also like to see a third party, independent third party, go out and do any wetland flagging delineation and look at, to make sure that there's no environmental impact on any of the trails that we're using now or any ones that we plan on building in the future, including the flow trail. I know that over in the conservation land, there was questions about bridges being built and this and that, and then mysterious foundations from the 1800s were found, and all sorts of other things went on, and we don't need DES approval. Somebody says we do need DES approval, so on and so on. So I would like to avoid all that and know exactly what's going on, and it would have to be an independent third party.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as we stated before, we have no problem working with the town and doing this right. That's why we're here. And I think that we want to limit the liability of the folks that are on the board that want to build trails. We want to limit the liability to the town, to the donors, everybody. It's a partnership to make sure we can have this happen. I think one thing I would, and I have no objection to, if there's process or things that are required as far as trail building or kind of a subjective third party, somebody to come in. The only part of that statement I'd push back on would be on existing trails, especially if it's nothing that we had anything to do with. I don't think we would want to fund having somebody go out and do wetland mapping of all of the existing trails in all of these networks, because...
Well, no, it wouldn't be the, none of the cross-country or any of the...
Okay, yeah, I just...
Just anything that was built from 3 years back just for single-track use, and anything going forward, we should know.
Maybe just taking that a step further, Brian, you're also probably limiting it to any of the projects that are on the town property. We wouldn't require any of this on any of the other properties or anything there. We're talking strictly, yeah, just so kind of narrow it, down, or, make it a little clearer.
Yep.
Anyway.
I see it more as we're going to need contracts. I mean, I think there's a certain amount of distrust because of what happened.
Well, and I think all that was that was all part of our process, is having a contract with insurance and everything else to make it
right
completely official.
And that's
Absolutely.
that part of it. We're going to have public hearings. We're going to need to know how much you're getting, because that's a gift to the town when you do that. Mm-hmm. So what's already happened, we're going to have to get that total and hold a public hearing on it. And so then the question becomes, who's going to maintain it? Are we going to put anything aside for future repairs? Because I know you have $40,000 that came to you from the Pathways Committee, who did the initial and gave that to you, and that it was kind of an endowment to make sure that the Sewell Woods and the one trail, I think, coming.
Right, that's the Stone Dust Trail,
Okay,
and that's
sure.
specific for that purpose.
And you have that. That's
Yes.
a maintenance. So I guess we're looking for something similar to that if we allow these trails to be built or continue to be built. What is going to be the maintenance cost? Who's going to do the maintenance costs? And are we going to put a fund for future repairs, major repairs, as part of packet and agreement moving forward?
Because things do change. At one time, we had a very strong Park and Rec soccer program in town. And then Seacoast United came in, and all of a sudden, our Parks and Rec program for soccer disappeared for a good period of time, and everything was Seacoast United that was all privatized. So not that you don't all have great intentions and don't plan on being here for 100 years, but if something happens and your group dissolves, then where does the responsibility fall? Then it falls on the taxpayers in the town to maintain them, or we just end up bouldering them up, and that's it, they're done.
Jim, do you want to give any input here and give us generally where you are? You're the administrator here.
So I think that everything's been hit this evening, and I think in our conversation. If we can get all of this stuff put together, come forward in advance, and then hold the public hearings for the citizens to weigh in on, that seems like that's a win-win. I think one of the concerns that I also have, you've hit them all, but one of the things that we did talk about specifically for the existing trails is an idea of what the as-builds of these trails look like, the mapping, what the structure underneath looks like, is there culverts, where those are located. We really need to have that as a town. And, you know, usually that's something that we will get in advance, have a plans review of it, and get a thumbs up. So that is one item that I think is still outstanding. It might be challenging to put together, but, you know, I think we can work with you and help you through that. I can get you the information regarding town liability requirements. That's not a big deal. And then getting together and building that license agreement between us so that we can get it to the Board of Selectmen and your full board so that everybody is in agreement.
So here's my question. Are you, if we get a management agreement and all this, are you willing to hire and have the staff and take control and maintain these trails? Or are you eventually going to look for the town of Wolfeboro to use its staff, its park and rec, to eventually take over these trails and maintain them? Because that is a element we as a town need to take a look at. We can't keep on adding things to our park and rec. So I would like a definition or a statement on what responsibilities you as a organization are willing to take on.
On top of that, Andrew Lester said that he was going to be the maintenance guy for all the trails for $35,000 a year. I think we need to have Mr. Lester come here to a couple of these work sessions, at least a couple, and I think we need to talk to him.
Well, I guess my
What would that
feeling is-
request be for? Why would you like him here?
Because
We're not going to pay him $35,000 to maintain trails.
he has a little bit of a play in this because the trails are there because he built them, and he's going to be continuing to build them. So I don't understand why.
Where is he going to continue to build them?
Doesn't he have to finish the flow trail eventually? If
No, he didn't
does
build
not,
that.
no.
He hired a subcontractor for the trail work, which I've been in communication with all the subcontractors. I've asked them all to, do you have insurance? Would you come back and build trails if we have the money and have the town approval? I've done all of the due diligence.
This is the first I've heard of it. Have you guys heard of it?
No.
Well, it hasn't come up yet.
No, I believe I've explained that before.
I
I
think-
could go watch the YouTubes again, but I'm pretty sure.
That Andrew Lester is now not part of this at all, ever anymore?
I think maybe in the last meeting, I mean, we're trying to simplify our lives.
Yep. Okay.
That's a nice way to put it.
Just to be frank, I mean, I'd like to see the trails be done. I'd like to see it be done in a way that everybody's agreeable to, and I'd like to limit confusion.
Yeah,
So, and this is something we've talked about, I personally have no problem, like I said at the beginning, I have no problem with the guy and the fact that he's built great trails. But as far as communication and clear expectation setting and budgeting, and there's a whole lot of stuff there that we as a board found very difficult, and you as a town found very difficult to sift through. So, if we have a way to move forward, the Wolfeboro Single Track Alliance has the ability to work with these trail builders that have existing knowledge or other trail builders that if we want to bring in for other parts of construction, that would be our intention. And I think with like even in our last meeting, there's existing work that we've paid him for that we are just debating eating and moving forward without, just so we don't have to deal with headaches.
And I think that's part of where we are. You know, you said, oh, yeah, the money was going through you. This money came, this thing just happened. We need insurance that that will not happen again.
yeah.
That's what we're building here and what our agreements are going to have to lay that out. And we need to know what you as a board are willing to take on financially, work-wise, et cetera. Brad?
I had one other note that I had jotted down here while we were talking about what some of these existing trails are. We had there's a comment on here about crossing, ski trails, stuff like that in the summertime. So we're also really talking about the ones that are on the town property here, where a bike trail crosses the ski, or if you plan on going along part of a ski trail during the summertime, would there be anything you guys would be, I guess one of the concerns I would have would be any rutting of the ski trail. I know Steve Flacco does the grooming on all those. Like they need to be fairly smooth so that you can get the skiers out there on a minimal amount of snow. And if there's ruts there or stuff, that could raise how much snow we would need before they could open up cross-country skiing and stuff. So that's just another little piece that we need to probably take a look at and have addressed.
Anywhere
and
we
stuff.
cross any of the Nordic trails, like you can't even tell we're there.
Yeah.
And that's,
They don't untouched.
at our last meeting as well, was last week or the week before, we met as a board to talk about trail closure at this time of year, because this is the worst.
Yeah.
And then everybody went out and did the, different areas, put some tape up and things, and we posted on social media saying, don't be that guy or girl, stay off the trails, it's too muddy right now. So we're doing kind of our best to protect that, just because for trail purposes, just as you across a ski trail, it's going to cause issues for grooming. It's also going to cause ruts and deterioration of the trail, which would then make maintenance more needed. So, in the spirit of maintaining the trails and limiting the kind of overall cost and time and effort, we're trying to do things like that as well. Closing the trails if it's not the right time to ride, even though everybody wants to get out because it's nice out. We're trying to be the voice of conscience for people, although not everybody will probably listen, but.
And I know right now you've got a bunch of money that's come in from a donor. Do you have the capacity, do you believe, to raise money over the next 10 years to maintain and take care of the trails?
Yeah, and I think I spoke to this, I'm pretty sure, at one of these meetings. We've seen the donor base, the amount of funds, and the level of interaction increase 100% every year, year over year. So, which has been exciting to see, from when I first launched the website and we got our first $50 donation, I was excited. Now we get $500 donations from people from Massachusetts, from around here, just like throughout the week. I get all the emails and see all the stuff. And it's amazing to see that these people from all over are doing this. And like I said, every single year it's grown exponentially. And that's, I think, number one. We're building trails, people are getting excited, we're doing a good job publicizing it. To some degree, it's like running a business. You got to market it, you got to make sure it's got a good product. So I think the intention here is, and again, working with the town, if we can make this an even more desirable place, even more people will use it, and even more people want to continue to use it. And then in our marketing and donor efforts and things like that, we'll continue to make the ask for not just new builds, but maintenance and things like that. And that's why even I believe on the Lakes Region Conservation Trust, we're coordinating with them right now for a volunteer day at Soulwoods in the next month, I believe. So, and that's something we did last year and had great turnout, and I believe I talked about that before. So, that's all part of this plan. I think it's even in the mission statement, to build and maintain multi-use trails for mountain biking purposes, whatever. So,
Once it's on town land, if you aren't able to do it, guess who gets to do it? So that's why, that's why you're getting these questions from me.
I get it.
How large is your board? I see you're young. You two are closer to my generation, and so you need to keep on building a board if we're looking 10 to 15 years down the line. So what's your size, and what are you doing to bring your age.
So fortunately and unfortunately, I was elected president in the last board meeting.
Oh, okay, Chris.
So,
It's a 15-year term.
That's right.
You didn't read the small print, did you?
no, but I mean, I think that honestly, part of the intention there was to try to, I hopefully can bring in some friends to add to our meetings, not necessarily just our board meetings, but just the overall goal and what we got going on here. And I have plenty to do in my day-to-day, but this is something that like I said before, skiing and biking are the two things that I've always enjoyed and want to continue to do around here. So if I can put some time in for a few years, and I mean, it's already been, 4 years since we started this thing, and got a few more going, and then I talked about term limits and what do those mean, so. but I mean, I think that was the intention that we were talking about is, Andrew Ingram was the president, and I'm probably the youngest one, right? Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked the question.
Right, so, and I think that there's 6 of us?
Grant,
and Brad, Helfer, and Andrew, yeah.
So if we're looking at 10 years, you got to bring some younger people.
Well, right,
on.
yeah.
Yes,
That's what I'm looking at, and as we commit, or we look at making a long-term commitment.
Yeah, and we're looking to, even just from, doing our taxes and trying to bring in somebody from a local agency that likes to ride bikes to sit, be part of the board of the treasurer, or things like that. So that is part of the goal of, my term as president, right, is to recruit some younger talent. And people that are in the community that are interested in being part of this. So.
Luke, do you want to have anything to say? Anybody else have any input?
Well, so I don't know where we are in the whole conversation, but would it be possible to have a site visit with Dave to review, like some of the areas I see in Hold are fairly obvious, but a couple of those ones like we talked about, like the very top of the climb line, that's above the Holy Shoot Pine, the top of the hill, and then the other lower ones, just to, because I don't know if he's been on site or if you just showed him the map and then he circled stuff and said, no.
What I did is he sent me the spray field map.
Yep.
And then I said, okay, here are your maps. This
Yep.
is what you want to do. Tell me which ones are on the spray field. And he took your map and went, and
Sure.
that's how I got it, so we know what ones can and cannot go forward. That was
Right.
what I was looking to get out of here, because you have given some thought, and if it's going up the spray field, some of those are going up the spray field, you're not going to be able to do it. So I was trying to get us to get an understanding of what was possible. Jim, I would think that we might be able to go.
I just think it
and-
would be really beneficial because,
I'd like to go, because I have ideas here and there, but I really, don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I went up and saw a flow, but I think it would be important.
I mean, just to walk up whatever he'd like to do, but I just think
Yeah,
it's really beneficial.
Dave's away right now, so I don't want to commit, but what I can commit is we will get out there with you guys at some point in the very near future, but I got to get Dave back and get his schedule figured out, because he's got his hands in all kinds of fires right now. So,
Sure.
But yeah, I think we can probably spend a morning up there at some point and and work some of that stuff out.
Jim, we may also be able to do it with the company that's running the Wooden and Curran. We've got guys out there who know those fields pretty well. If Dave is really, busy, they can show us the area of where the fields are.
Yeah, and I'll have a conversation with his,
Russ Howe?
I was going to say Scott Pike tomorrow to see
Oh, Scott Pike, okay.
if he may be available. If not, I'll just wait until Dave gets back and schedule something.
I wonder if they could just maybe use a blue flag or something and flag what they consider the outskirts of the Sprayfield area.
I think it would be better to get everybody on site. That way we're not dealing with he said, she said, this isn't my flag,
It's
this
a
is
very,
somebody
and it's
else's
a very
flag.
large area.
Yeah,
have somebody
we
go
need to
flag
be all on the same page.
Yeah.
There's too much there. I appreciate what you're saying, and I think we can flag that as a group, but I think we need to flag that as a group.
I think so, too. I think if we're going to work together, we better all see and understand the same thing. just me.
The only thing I was thinking is they know where the water lands. They know which parts are active because they maintain them. So maybe it'd be advantageous to have someone from their organization with us when we walk.
Yep, not a problem.
Okay, so I guess where we are, we're not going to move forward with Climb because he's marked that as not. The Board of Selectmen are going to have to decide what they want to do with flow. And I guess what would help me is, have any of you been out and seen the flow trail?
This spring?
What-
No, I've not been out yet this year.
So we had some areas where it was very clear that there looks like, and maybe Dan can go out there, is that there were some environmental issues. And how
What
we're
is-
going to rectify that.
You know, what does that refer to when you just say environmental issues?
Well, you got
That's a
this.
big term.
Well, I looked at it because that's me, looking out there
Okay.
and looking down from a trail and seeing a lot of water down there and trees cut down, and it seems like it was wetlands when it was done. I don't have that, but that's,
I haven't seen it, so.
I'm looking down, that's all I know, and that's what it looks like to me. So we need to take a look at what happened out there. That's what I'm really saying. And see.
Dan, if you had gone out, you might have said, whoa, move it this way, move it that way. Watch where it's going.
Yep, well, I helped lay out the trails at Furlong Station to make sure that they weren't going into environmentally sensitive areas, so.
And I don't think that, I guess Andrew laid out the trails. He decided where they went.
Yeah, I mean, the flagging and construction was part of the master plan that we had paid for, was to figure out where trails could go theoretically, right? And just, which, again, the intent, the perception was that we were going to put a master plan together, get approval on it, and then build. But those.
Who determined where the trails were on the master plan?
So Andrew Lester worked with, he had another person that does trail flagging to like look at the contours of the land to figure out how to keep grade and speed and all of that sort of stuff. He's from Arkansas, the guy that came up, who's done a lot of work for the Walton family down there and building out them, which is, so again, not a fly-by-night operation, but a person that knows how to look at the terrain and create trails. And he mapped things out. I can also tell you that what he mapped out, I don't think it necessarily aligns to ultimately what ended up being fully built, which was a comment I had in a conversation when asking all these questions to figure out how much did we spend, what was your original GPX or whatever coordinates. And
I think that's very respectable, and we understand that completely. That's why those as-builds are so important in contrast to the master plan.
yeah, and I think the one caveat, just for not throwing all blame, there is, I guess, a level, I'm not a master trail builder. I'll just tell you that right now. But there is a level of when you start going and you start carving the trail, it might not be 1 foot this way, it might go a foot this way or whatever. So I don't know the level of variance of when, if you dig in with an excavator and you find a giant rock, you might say, oh, we need to move 4 feet that way. So, even if it was flagged with the best intentions, I know there can be deviation. So I will give that positive to them as far as if they did change from the plan. But I don't know exactly how far or.
When they flag and build a trail, how much of a concern is it for environmental impact, or are they just looking at, this is the way a trail would work the best? That's what I'm not sure what their mindset was when they were doing this. Did they just say, this is the easiest, best place and the trail that would work the best for us? Or is part of that, this is the easiest and best trail we can build without causing environmental impact? I don't know if they consider that.
I can't answer that, but I do know they take drainage
Seriously.
to a very serious, because they do not want their work
They don't want them washed out.
ruined, get washed out, and it doesn't want to get soft. So they're very drainage conscious.
And so if we do what is going to be built, if in the building, it goes a different path, we're going to need that marked so that when we see it, I don't know whether that you have that for the Conservation Commission, but then we know what we have. One of the things we found out with some of the building things, you don't know where the electric line is, you don't know where this is, and so you go to do something, and I think, Jim, you're getting really good about wanting those kind of plans, because then you have to deal with stuff.
What everybody thought wasn't really what
Right,
was.
right, and so then you're.
That's my piece of property right there. No, it isn't.
I don't know exactly what to do with flow. I have a real hard time with that one, because my understanding, it's not even done.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, from my perspective, I think, given where we sit today, right, with the understanding of this, I think again, my perspective, I think it would be good to go out and just take this piece of paper and concept and go definitively look at that, even the climb. I mean, I don't want to throw it out the window unless somebody from the spray, and if Dave were to go look at it and walk and say, you know what, this is in the spray field, but it's actually 300 feet away from any active thing, maybe it's not a problem. I would like it to have at least walk up and have that decision made, and not like vote on it right now tonight. Just if there is an instance where we could save part of it, great. If not, whatever, then we move on. The flow, I think similarly, that seems to be out of the spray field issue, but there seems to be from, kind of your just
I question.
looking at it
Yeah.
with, I think we should look at it and from all lenses and make sure that if there is something that needs to be addressed, and if we did a certain thing a certain way, and you guys would be cool with it, then.
And do you know, is it as long as it's going to be, and the rest of the money you're going to spend is on making it more curves and stuff, or is it just not as big and it's going to go a lot further? That's what I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, the variability in the cost was basically where does it come out? Where does it end?
Okay.
Because if you came out of the woods where it is now onto the top of one of the ski trails that's in the woods there, then it's however many feet times the dollar amount, and then it's done. If we're able to cross it and come down through the woods a little bit further towards the bottom, which based on what the trail builder was saying, there's a lot of good features and stuff that could continue, then it becomes longer. So that one, the length of it is somewhat variable on.
Based on the numbers, it could be double the length.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it just depends on where you want to stop it. And I mean, like with anything, with those trails, they do align to an open corridor that's, 40 feet wide of ski trail that if you're on a mountain bike, you should be able to drive down. So I think that there is a intention that it would be longer and be more fun and to finish. But I also know that there is intention, and if we can, and it looks like from this conversation in the map, the Tomahawk redo and the Yum Run would be feasible with a little caveat there in that one section. So, I mean, if we could walk that and see if there was a way to route and just make sure we didn't dip into the spray field area and that one area.
Any of these new trails, are they in any way going on to private property?
No.
None of them are.
Oh,
No, there's there's boundary lines, and when you look at the GPX, they stayed below the southern boundary line, I guess, right?
Then you're going to have to.
Oh,
Oh, right, no,
No.
yeah. I mean, anything that we've ever thought about that's not town, like we actually have approvals to do other stuff to go from Abenaki towards the Nick, and there's private landowners that have said, yes, we would give you permission, but again, in our board meeting, we discussed that if they say that, what does that mean? Is it on paper? How do we make sure that we get all of this done? So, I mean, we're very adamant about making sure something's written down.
Yeah, look towards the snowmobile trails.
Yeah.
They are now private. Someone sells their house, someone new buys the house, and you know what they say? Not my backyard.
Well, right.
Go around the other way.
Yeah.
32 miles to get back to the trail. So you.
Right. But the intention with the Abenaki, that those two trails, like on the top of the map when you're looking at it, those stay clear of private land, and if we could make it stay clear of the spray field in that one section, it looks to me, at least based off of these kind of highlights that those seem feasible. So as long as the group here thinks that that's feasible, as long as we all walk it and see if it's good, I think that would just be the best thing to do before we definitively say one way or another. Because one of those trails with the Tomahawk redo is a climb line. It's a bi-directional trail. So if we're eliminating the one climb line, having one of those would be advantageous. You know, I think the Yum Run is down, and then the Tomahawk redo was a up or down. So that's why I'd like to, if we're getting rid of one, I want to make sure we could try to make those two work so then we could have an up, so it's not all down.
Yeah, we're just going on what,
Yeah.
you know, you presented, and you can, if you can redesign and get it out, then that's a
Right.
whole nother thing.
Yeah, and I spoke to the gentleman who flagged the stuff initially, and he's more than willing to come up if he needs to flag anything else, so we've already talked about that. So I think if we were to do this exercise and go out and make sure that if there was a guy that was going to come flag to do the mapping and everything, that he's part of this.
What is flagged out there now?
There are flags for, I believe, the Yum Run, I believe, is flagged.
It's like it's not easy, like you're not going to be able to just follow it.
I mean, you just don't walk out there.
No, because
got
even I
this
know
one.
those woods pretty well, and I look at it and I don't know where it's going.
Okay. There are flags out there that nobody can.
Yeah, so they're flagged in a code that I don't get.
Okay, well, then there's no prayer for me.
So they know.
But I mean, to that point, if we were to schedule a day and I were to, you know, we were to pay this gentleman to fly up and be here to be part of that, you know, that's on the table. So,
Okay.
again, I'm just trying, whatever barriers we can get out of the way to make it happen, that'd be great.
I have a question. You plan to have these trails open in the winter, or are they going to be done in the winter? That we're looking at, once the winter hits,
Right.
that's cross-country ski, snowshoeing,
Correct.
and your bikes are out of there.
Got the fat bikers, fat
Right.
tire bikes.
Well, I mean, if you're talking down the road, it would be nice to have other trails lower, not these trails. Because nobody wants, you can't climb in the winter.
These are the trails I'm talking
All right,
about.
and
And
the
we'll
answer-
let him
yeah.
over here.
The answer's,
and hold that.
then the answer is no.
Okay, that's what so we're looking at them not conflicting in any way.
Correct.
So I guess where I hear us coming to is that we really need to first, before we do anything move forward, is to get out there as a group and walk the trails. Am I correct?
With the right people.
Yes, right. Good, Lynn, right. With the right people.
Have them turn on the spray fields, and then we'll walk around and see where we stay dry.
Well, it depends upon, I think they rotate the,
You go first, Brian.
yeah.
Thank you.
I don't think they rotate the fields. I don't think they, I think they at times spray different sections. You don't want to flood it, so, but we'll send you out May 1st, and I want you to kind of go out there consistently and tell me how it goes.
Walk up and down Holy Chute.
Does any board member have anything else they feel we need to bring up? Or we're at the point where our next thing is to meet and walk the area and figure out what can be done or not? I guess what we have to take back to the Board of Selectmen is also to decide whether we're going to allow the trails on the land.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think the next logical step is to walk the thing with the people that know where the spray fields are, where they're operating, and even if you guys want to bring up that gentleman there, was he say from Arkansas or something like that, that knows the lay of where it would fit best, stuff like that. I mean, having all the right eyes on it at the right time would be the way to move forward, I think, and then come back and look at the trails that are here that are in question. Can they be shifted? Can they fit in? Kind of go at it like that.
So what do we want to do with the money that's already been spent on the trails and a public hearing? We're going to, as a group, go on and look at, where it is, but we have these trails on our property now, and there has been money that has been spent. Jim, do we have to accept it if it's been, it seems like the public needs to know this money has been spent on town land before we get going too far down the road here.
Yeah, I think we have to have a clear understanding of what's been built. I can go out there with some people. I think it makes sense to have a public hearing regarding the trails which have been built, with the understanding that we need to have a public hearing going forward for trails that are being proposed.
Shouldn't we have an as-built plan done before that? Because the public needs to see where the trails are, what they are, and we need definitively to know what's there and what money we're accepting for what trails. We
yes,
can't
I
just,
think-
yeah,
no, I
we can't just accept money and say, we're accepting money for trails.
No, it would be for the specific trails. You're absolutely right. We need to know this trail's here, and we got X amount of money, and we have this trail here, and there was X amount of money spent on that. We have to know the trails.
So I think the closest analogy would be, you know, if we were doing a road layout, we would need those as-builds in advance of the public hearing, but that's going to take time. So I think that's the problem that this group has, is the time. They want to be able to get on the trails, they want to be able to utilize the trails, and they want to be able to continue to work forward to build trails. You know, but I am also hearing the board, before they go forward, they want to, if I'm understanding it correctly, they want to be able to accept these existing trails before they give authorization to do anything further. So it's kind of a chicken and egg thing here, where what do you as a board and what do you as a board really want to accomplish, and how quickly?
But you had, this, there was a person who designed this. Does that person not have the design for the trails that just were built?
I would guess, and I think my guess is probably more than a guess, that a bike trail design and a public roadway are going to be 100% different. So I don't think the level of detail and information and what would you
No, but
specify as an
I think we
as-built?
need the culverts. You know, if
Right.
if there's 32 culverts and 14 bridges on the trails, I think that it's very fair that the public and the board need to know that.
Right, no, and that I was going to say, so the original plans, I don't think would have, like, what you would probably expect in an as-built type of sort of document. That said, I think in these maps here were actually, those are when you walked them last fall, so I mean, that's actual GPS coordinates of.
That's what I was going to ask. Couldn't you just use your bike in Strava and?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what
That's
these.
where they came from.
That's where those came from.
Now, can't they be put on a regular Google map or something like that, something so that we can actually see?
Yeah, well, and that's what the original ones were, and everybody had a hard time seeing them, so that's why I drew
They're
all
on
these
Google
ones.
Earth. Like if we had
Yeah, I
Google
mean,
Earth,
they
we
are
could
hard.
see
You
'em,
can't
right?
see them, but
Yeah.
could somebody ride down the trail so they could get a picture of what the trail's like?
Well, and
Like
I think
flow,
that, yeah, that's what I was saying. Like,
Like
I think
with a video?
we could have,
Neither.
so they could see them. My brother-in-law has all sorts of cameras on the back. He takes pictures of everything in that, because we're going to say, accept these trails. This is what this trail looks like.
so in the public hearing, would it be helpful to have a video, like a
Yeah.
video for people to, yeah. I mean, and then I think that's the thing, like, we could map out, you know, at 300 feet, there's a culvert here, and at 500 feet, there's a culvert here, and have some sort of depiction of what it is. Yeah, that's fine.
And it's width,
Yep.
you know, and have some, you don't have to do the whole thing, but some pictures so people get an idea of what kind of a trail it is. You know, a flow trail is going to be different than a single track and what a double track is. If
Yep.
that's any of the ones that we're going to be accepting, just so that they have an idea and that they know we have an idea.
And I think it's also speaks to tone of a public session. You know, it's the quality of life and the positive aspect of that that we want to be in a position to show off to the public.
I mean, people don't understand this when you talk to, if we are given a $200 bench to set down on the sidewalk in downtown, people have to come to a meeting. We have to approve that we're going to accept $200 as a gift and then give them permission to put it at a certain location on the sidewalk for a $200 bench. Now, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in trails. We can't just say to people, yeah, we got trails and it's okay, and, you know, we're going to spend, we're taking donations from money because we kind of are now because it's on our property. So now that you've put them on town property, the town kind of owns them.
Was there a similar process done when they did Twister? Redid Twister?
We had a hearing on Twister. They gave us the money. Yeah, we had as-built.
I'm just asking,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's a very
No,
similar thing.
They gave us, they came.
Yeah, and I think the solution, the workaround on this, the money aspect is probably the license agreement. That's probably the workaround to make it work. So, you know, I've already had brief conversations. I believe when we met in December, we talked about license agreement or MOU. I have had conversations with legal counsel about it. He's working on some stuff, and I'm meeting with him again middle of next week, so I can follow up with him as to where we're at with a draft on a license agreement for that.
And I guess the reason I was looking, when you're saying quality of life, when you show going down the trail, you get a feeling of what's there. And so they know what we're, going to accept.
Show a family going down the trail. Little kids, bigger kids.
Okay,
bigger
your kids are on again.
No, I
And
know.
grandpa.
It's unfortunate they're wet right now.
With a grandpa, too.
Yeah, right.
I know, that's the problem. Right now, we don't want anybody on the trail.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I know there's footage from the crews that built the trails. I saw one posted on Instagram the other day, actually. So.
Okay, so that's.
So, I mean, we can do something, and there's also a lot of really good videos about just what is single track, what is double track, what does a trail do for a community that, and I think we mentioned this, that we are contemplating working with another organization to do a master plan that's even better for moving forward. And that's the group that has put together a couple of these things for down in like Kentucky and different areas that have built these trail networks.
Up in Maine.
The one in Maine, yeah.
Millinocket.
Millinocket. So, so we could figure something out.
Yeah, because that, we do that. You get to present that. We get to then, the public gets to see what we're talking about and what kind of trails and where we're going with it as we accept money. And if this is the first in a number of them, I think that's well worth it. It's not the number of people who show up here. It's the number of people who watch it up on the television. That always amazes me, the number who, I think nobody's here and there are a whole bunch of them watching.
What, if we were to, I'm just trying to your point, right? There's an urgency to move forward because there's only a certain amount of time that you could build trails. But there's also a process that we need to adhere to. So if we were to do a public hearing, when would that be able to be scheduled? I mean, is there a cadence for those, or if we were to?
So we need, I believe it's 14 days public notice in the paper. I've got to confirm that, but I believe it's 14 days.
But again,
For
what
that
does the
notice, and
public
then-
need?
I-
Information for a public hearing. How much do they need so they understand what it's about?
Well, I think that's what we're talking about putting together. Before we did that, would you be willing to give us a number on what you would be willing to do yearly for maintaining those trails?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I mean, a lot of what we've done so far has been volunteer-based, just because we've tried to build the trails in such a way that it doesn't require lots of capital expense. We can convene and figure out and talk to the trail builders on expectations. I mean, the expectations set from them when I asked them about the trail maintenance numbers was that these were done in such a way to try to limit the amount of maintenance needed from just time and effort and money. But that doesn't mean there is none. So do I know the number sitting here right now? No, but I mean, we could probably come up with some sort of concept on that.
And part of that, your role as single track in maintaining and working on them, because we'll be starting the presentation of the first trails, and that will kind of set the expectation, what role you're going to play.
Yeah, and I guess the question I would have is, I know we talked about 2 hearings. Is there any way that if that hearing could be to say, we have 2 situations and use it as a dual purpose meeting, so we don't have to do 14 days, have a meeting, do 14 days, least have a meeting.
So we certainly could notice two meetings within the same, two public hearings within the same meeting. We could do that if the
But
board
I
so
don't think we
desired.
know right now enough of what the trails are, where they're going. We still have to walk, is my feeling, and we have, opposed to stuff that's already done, that we're going to accept, as for the town. And then we can look at once we have everything put together for the trails, we don't even know what those trails are going to be. We don't know where they're going to be because we got the issue with the spray field. So I kind of saw it, accept what is done, and I'll pass it over to my other board members to see what they think. Accept what's done, do that public hearing, start the understanding, and then as we are able to define, maybe we're looking at these two trails and we have the agreements. Is that?
I mean, conceptually, the only reason I was asking was if, and I'm, again, trying to limit steps and complexity, if the town says no, do we as an organization want to spend money flying people up here and doing a bunch of stuff? And that's why I was just kind of like, I'm wondering if we went and said, we've got this situation where we would like to finish it, and because we have enough, I think, rough numbers to know that it's roughly going to be around this amount of money. And I don't know if you have to have a definitive number to have a public hearing, and I leave that up to you guys. And the other aspect of it is, if we're going to finish the down, having the up would be good to kind of have going at the same time, just as far as trail people building and who would be here to do this stuff. So that's why I was just kind of curious if we could.
Well, I see
like,
that
if
as
the-
new trails opposed to already.
So Linda,
built
correct me
trails.
if I'm wrong, but the public hearing is just to get public input.
No, public hearing is to hear the public input and then accept what we are being.
Correct. The board accepts.
Right, but the public hearing and
I understand.
the board
but
vote
I didn't
come
want,
at the same time.
yeah, I didn't
They
want
don't
him,
come
I didn't want him to misunderstand, because the way he worded it was, if the public, he thought, it sounded like the way he was saying, like the public votes on whether or not the trails happen. And it's public input, and then the board votes on where we go. I'm torn because I love to bike, and I bike 1,000 miles on the road if I can a summer, and I use Sewell Woods and everything like that. So I'm not trying to be cruel or mean to anybody, but I have to wear two hats. I just ordered a new helmet from Great Britain for my road bike, so my wife thinks I'm a little kooky sometimes. But, so I love the biking, but I also have to think about all the people in town and what is best financially going forward for them, and what kind of recreation the average person in town uses, doesn't use, so on and so on. Not everybody bikes, not everybody water skis, so it's something that you just have to consider all sides as you do it. So I just want you to understand that.
Oh, yeah, no, and that's helpful. I mean, again, that's why I'm asking questions.
No, that's what it's here for. That's why it's a work session.
Because if there was a way to kill two birds with one stone, and to some degree, that's what I was just, I just wouldn't want to get to the point where but ultimately it's just and the only other one I've been at was when we asked to do the fat biking on the Nordic ski trails. And then I remember the guy showed up in his Nordic skiing gear with his skis and said, absolutely not. So like, that's my only context for these meetings. So I just wasn't sure if there was a,
Well,
yeah.
luck lies with us. We either have to go or
Yeah.
So one group leaves mad and the other group is happy, or vice versa. Brad, what do you think about, do you want one or two public hearings?
I guess I'm personally not as concerned about having to separate these out. I don't see why we could have one public hearing, to kind of work with the group here, so that we're already into this, for whatever time frame it's been now, since last fall, of the trails being worked on and built up there on the spray fields in Abenaki. I guess I'm not so concerned that we need to have that public hearing to accept the 59,000, whatever's been spent to date or whatever on the trails there. And then have another one to move forward once we decide on, where the fuel flow can go, if climb can be done or has to be abandoned. And then the other 2 or 3 down on the other side of the reservoir there. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't see why we couldn't have that meeting, walk the property, see where everything lays out, see if it's feasible to, shift some trails if we need to work around the spray fields and get them where, where they're not going to be in conflict with what we have going on there. Come up with a value for the whole thing there, and then have the public hearing for, what's been spent so far, what's anticipated being spent, X amount of dollars, and go forward with that, so.
I think that's a lot to digest in one time. Do you think so, Linda, too?
I guess I just split it up as, let's accept the ones that are there, get that all out, get that clean, and then go to where we're moving forward. That's just how my.
Yeah, and you said kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I came on as a selectman with a bucket of stones, and I had all the selectmen tell me, government moves slowly. Slow down, Brian. Government moves slowly.
Can I just ask a question? Is there a possibility to still be 2 phases, but the first phase is more of a public share out with the notification of an upcoming public meeting?
Well, the public, we have the money they spent today. And I see the public hearing is accepting and saying, do we accept those trails and that money? In having that public hearing gives them the opportunity to tell their story and why they did it, why the trails are there, and blah, blah, blah.
And I think Jim's right. I think he could schedule 2 public hearings, one a week after another, so that the public could come, we could talk about the trails that exist, see if they're happy with them, that they want them in place, accept the money that you've already spent, and then the next week come back and say, okay, now here's a second public hearing. Do we want to expand the trails?
Right.
So it would happen relatively quickly. More meetings for us, more meetings for you, but that's what we're here for, right?
To me, the difference is that these are built, they're done, they're finished. The other one is something we're still designing. We don't even know for sure where they're going to go.
But actually, neither of the current trails are finished.
What?
Neither of the current trails are finished.
But you spent money on them.
Sure, that's
And they're
true.
on our land, and,
Yeah,
and
okay.
it's.
I just don't want to come to the thing that they're done. Not
No,
done.
we're accepting the money that was
Yes.
spent on something that's concrete. That's what I'm,
And this trail is here. Does the public want this trail here? And then the next week, okay, you've decided you want the trail as it exists now. We're going to complete the trails with your approval, and we're going to accept more money. And that gives the public the right to say yes or no.
It'd be with their input, it would be with their yes or no, our yes or no.
that's
Our yes or
right.
no, their input, yes or no.
Pressure on us one
Yeah.
way or another. I think it really comes down to, if, everybody comes and says, no way, it's real hard to say, I'm not going to get it.
My last question, I guess, would be, it seems like do we need to have the outdoor session walking first before we schedule the public hearing? Is that
My feeling is the first one could go right away. You've spent it, it's here.
okay.
There's nothing to do
It's
for
just,
it, right?
yeah, we just accept it. Here's what the trail, they've spent this money, do we expect the trails knowing they spent X amount of money on it? Boom, yes, no, boom. Then we have to, I think before we do another one, we have to walk and have some kind of ideas. If we got spray fields, you're going to kind of design them differently, and then we don't want to put a map up there where your trails aren't going.
I'm still stuck with, if we accept money and accept trails without public input, have we taken away the public's right to voice their opinions on whether or not they wanted the money accepted and they wanted the trails
We're
accepted?
going to have a public hearing on that. That's what I'm talking about, a public hearing. That's what it is, to accept it. It's absolutely a public hearing.
For that first one, would that need the as-built and the videos and everything, or what level?
That would be the video and as much of an as-built you could give.
Yeah, they got to be, public has to be able to see something.
Yep, no, I just want to,
And that's where you, that's your first story.
I'm in New York all next week and Florida all the next
Building the
week, so.
excitement. Building the excitement for it.
This is where we're going. Look what we've got. You know, we've already done this. Wait, we'll come back. We're designing the next phase, go on your thing of phases. And so that they get to, you know, you'll get to tell your story twice, and hopefully more people will become excited, and that site will be getting more money popping in all the time. So does that work for everybody? Brad, you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Like I said, yeah, we could schedule this first one right in without, you know, too much, you know, some legwork on your guys' part to put the field video together and the map and stuff there, but get that one going, get that behind us while we schedule the meeting to do the walkthrough and the relocation or redesigning of the system that's out there now. And
And it sounds like, Jim, you can get a license agreement up in not too long a time, and we can take a look at that.
Yeah, I can do that, and I'm also,
In your free time.
I've got, based on the conversation that's taken place tonight, I just want to do a little bit of research on the donations, because the law, the way I understand it, it states that donations in excess of 5,000, but I'm not seeing anything that states that we need to know what the exact number is. So I need to do a little bit of research, and that could help to move this along a little quicker.
Okay, that sounds good.
When do you think we could walk it? We could walk it without walking on the trails.
Yeah, you could do that.
You can bushwhack beside them.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's, people have been up there. You know, people have ridden down it and around it.
We want to go out before May 1st, if possible, because that's when they start spraying.
I don't think that's really a concern, personally, but yes, we would like to do it before, but May 1st is literally 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
So,
I'm available.
We're going to go up, you know,
well, it's not us, it's the people who need to be there. They're the ones.
You guys schedule a date, I will ensure that somebody is there, even if it's me and I got to go up with Dave Ford after the fact.
yeah, well, and the other thing is if they know we're coming,
Right.
they don't have to spray right in that area, knowing we're going to be there from,
But you're really, yeah, okay.
you know, for
I
an
agree,
hour.
but
Yeah, can we
I can almost pretty much guarantee you where we'll be walking, there is no actual spray. Because we've all been there all summer long, and there is no spray right where the trail is. It's the spray field area, but there's no actual, like, water
well-
going around.
Well, if you're by the pipes, there will be. It'll be spraying.
Sure.
You know. there's no
I mean, I've
doubt
never been
about
out
that.
there. I don't know.
Yeah,
I stay in.
Yeah.
It's like a sprinkling system. It shoots out.
just wear your tick spray.
That's what I was thinking.
They are out there. But I think it would be very valid to have Dave on site, since he is the one representing the town in this case and doing all this. I think his attendance is pretty important.
I was just thinking of all the 10,000 other things Dave Ford had to do. That's the only reason why I was.
And I can, let me again see if we can
Right.
delegate
Well, I just
that.
want to make sure if he's, whoever is the person who can give the yes, the no, if you can't go here, but you can go there, that person who can literally give that permission needs to be there. That's all I'm saying, is because you and I can go and, you know, us here, and it doesn't mean anything.
Well, I mean, Jim can work this out.
I'll get it
okay?
figured out.
Whether
If you
it's-
guys can,
Whether it's whoever it is that in the town can either do that enough, and I'll leave
It has
that
to
up
be.
to Jim.
It has to be whoever's maintaining those pipes too, because whoever's
Yeah, the
maintaining
guys.
they know more than anybody.
Sure, that's the
That-
job.
That's their job.
so, I mean, so that I can keep this moving for you guys, do you have a date that works for you so that I can work with staff to get somebody programmed up there?
I'm very flexible. So pretty much
I'll make myself
anytime.
flexible for this.
Only time I can't do it is around the Easter week. No, the
Or
weekend.
April
after.
vacation week would not be a good week.
That's when
That's next week, isn't it?
Wait a second, yeah. I will be
So the week of the
It's the
25th?
week after next.
Yeah. The school
25th.
week is the week of the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, right? It's the last week.
It's the last week that goes into
Yeah.
next month.
I will be away through Tuesday. I'll be back the 27th of that last week.
I can't, the only time that I'm stuck is the weekend of the 23rd, 24th, and I can't do it on the weekend of May 13th, 14th, 15th. But I can do
hope we
any
do it
other
before
weekend,
then.
I can do any other weekend and any other weekday and morning, noon, night, whenever.
I'm going from the 23rd through the 26th.
And believe me, I feel your pain. We're trying to do some construction, my wife and I. You know when our schedule is? Spring of 2023.
I can figure something out with Scott Pike or the other staff. I believe Dave is going to be back. I believe it's going to be Tuesday.
Is that the 21st? That was the date I thought.
That
Tuesday's
would be
the
the 19th.
19th.
I think well, let me see, I had an email from him at one point, and he told me.
Dan go for the environmental issues up there. You didn't have to go.
Right. That's Dan's department.
Right.
So I mean, I guess, are we trying to do this like next week sometime?
I'm open. I mean, well, let me rephrase that. I do have availability on the 19th and the afternoon of the 22nd.
What's that, Friday, yeah. That one I may not be available.
So the
20
19th
Friday.
19th is the Tuesday.
You said you were open.
Well, I
Sorry.
forgot about April vacation week.
For
My
New
wife's
Hampshire,
going to
is
be
it
in Washington DC. I'll be
Hampshire's
watching two
from where?
geriatric dogs.
20?
25th through the,
Yeah, but we may leave the 22nd. Away and
right.
come back.
can you do the 19th?
Oh, I can do any day up to the,
19th?
You can do the 19th.
any day up to the 22nd.
So,
can't.
The 19th is fine with me.
Yeah, I can do the 22nd.
No, the 19th. Let's go for the 19th.
He said he can't do
I cannot do the 22nd.
You cannot do the 20th, I can do the 19th.
the 19th.
After,
so let me just say this. Can we tentatively pencil the 19th, and I can get in touch with everybody tomorrow?
Yes.
Time? Doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter.
4:30 a.m.
That's not happening.
There's an EDC meeting at 8, so that goes until 9:30.
Okay. So 10 at the earliest. Okay. I will get something out to everybody tomorrow. I guess my only other question is, how many board members do we anticipate? Because I'll just have to notice a meeting.
I'm not going to be able to go because my knees, hips, and back. I'm not doing any hiking in the woods.
Luke? Yes? So there'll be at least 3, so I'll notice a meeting.
And I imagine Dave won't walk either,
Probably.
so it's probably,
You just had back stuff done today, so.
it'll just be us young ones.
Okay. The only other thing that I've got to say about that is, and I'll put it in the email to everybody if that date is a go, just remember, the Pop Whalen project is well underway, and the building is being dismantled as we speak, so I'll figure out a place where we can muster up and go from there.
Can we go in Filter Bed Road and drive up in through there, or is it too wet?
It's too wet.
Too wet?
You're the selectman, it's your property, you can say what you want to do.
I got my buggy. I got my buggy, but I can only fit one person in it.
Okay.
Just say, but that would also be a much longer walk than going. Because you really want to see the climb line, the flow trail, and then that lower part, so you don't really need to go.
Yeah, you can go up Filter Bed Road and you can drive right to the top of the mountain.
But are we talking about looking at these as well?
Yes.
So, but if you parked over,
Yeah, you have to go all the way up, all the way down, all the way up, all the way back.
Hey, can you give me a ballpark idea how long you think that will take? 3 hours, 2 hours?
I would
5
say
hours?
at least 3.
Program 5.
I would say, I could easily turn into 5. I would say 4.
10 o'clock, bring lunch.
Brian said he's bringing lunch, is that what I heard?
I'll bring
I just
sandwiches.
heard
How
lunch
many
break.
sandwiches we need? 1, 2, 3, 4,
Depends on how fast you walk and how,
8 sandwiches.
And we need drinks and
Yeah, 8 waters, 8 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I can carry that in my pocket. It'll be a little flat, the sandwiches.
or you could do it in 2 ways. You could just do the, the climb and the flow and the Abenaki ski thing. And then you could go around to filter bed and come in the other way.
that might make more sense if we didn't want to spend all.
So you're not, that's all up to however you want to do it.
We'll let you lead us. Because if they're flags there, we'll never know. Okay, is there anything else on the trails that people want to talk about? If not, I'm going to pass it back to Brad. Brad, it's
You
all
guys all set for right now? All right. Thanks for coming in too, by the way, so.
We'll get it.
Okay. Next on our agenda is other business. Do we have any other business to talk about tonight? Do you have a question, Brian, you wanted to ask?
Rudy, off the record.
It's not off the record, we're being
We're
recorded.
in the meeting. There's no off the record.
We're live.
To the trail.
They go over there
How do we
with
send
them.
volunteering?
Off the record.
Unable.
Okay,
All right.
moving on with other business. Do we have any other business, board business here this evening before us? And seeing none, we have on the agenda next meeting date. I don't know if that was pertaining mostly to the single track, the bike trail, so we'll kind of leave that sitting as is right now. Jim, do we have anything else tonight you wanted to bring up to us?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
You certainly may. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
A motion, a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.